Yo, dude, I checked the comments on the first video, dude. They love you!
Okay, so hi, if you don't know who I am, I'm Blank Hank, and I created the idea behind my own aesthetic called Gravity Punk. It's a place where people are able to control the power of gravity and are able to use it even better when their heart is beating fast. Also, there's 3 worlds that people can live in. The top one being where the rich and powerful go, the middle where average schmucks like us go, and the bottom where the poor and powerless often rot. If you want to know more, please feel free to watch the video and then come back. With that out of the way, hi! I saw there were a lot of you in the comments that wanted me to do more with Gravity Punk, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. I was brimming with ideas that I couldn't share at the time, because me and my editor had to get the video out in like 4 days. Isn't that right, Philip? But now that I've got more free time on my hands, I am able to deliver you guys more of a cohesive storyline of what the average adventure may look like in the world of Gravity Punk. This video serves as somewhat of a breakdown of my writing process and does spoil a fair bit about these stories, so if you want to go into them blind, then feel free to do so. But without further ado, introducing the first of the 2 short stories I'll be sharing with you, dear viewer, The Orchestra, headlined by our protagonist Pierre. I wanted something that served as a short but proper introduction to the setting and all of its intricacies. His story is an extension of the monologue I read in the first video. Born into absolute poverty and without a place to fall back on, his older brother is forced to work like a dog to make ends meet. This instills a fire in young Pierre, a determination to get stronger and harness the full potential of his gravity to ensure his ability to secure a good living in one of the worlds above. But one day, whilst being caught running away from home by his brother, he's found training with an assortment of empty cans stacked on top of a few cardboard boxes. It's from there his brother pushes him to get better at harnessing his powers with gravity. However, after seeing him struggle, he offers him a sip of a substance called Gravis. What is that, you may ask? Well, thank you so much for giving me an excuse to pad out the runtime of this god-awful video idea. Gravis is a pink liquid drug stored in vials and distributed from shady back-end dealers. It's essentially a drinkable adrenaline and helps people with lower gravitational pulses control gravity better. The feeling can get addicting, and people can even forget how to use their power without it after prolonged exposure. Yet, that's not the only unforeseen consequence. As you see, making your heart beat super duper fast all the time makes you age rapidly, and people can begin to have hearts that are 10, 20, even 40 years too old for them before they eventually give out. And I really like the introduction of this into the world because I'm a huge sucker for self-destructive characters. Those who keep pushing themselves in spite of the consequences that come with doing so, like David Martinez or Aaron Yeager. And I also think making somebody use the substance adds a lot more character. I mean, think of the slurry of questions that come with it. Why do they use it? How much do they use it? Do they have to use it? Or are they using it to get away from their insecurities? Or maybe to bolster their own ego? I really do think that people should place a key emphasis on parts of their stories beyond their characters to incite interest in the premise. Because coming from personal experience, I think it's a lot easier to grow intrigued in a character more so than a concept because a character is dynamic and able to develop. But I think that people should also realize that that's the case for concepts as well. Again, circling back to Gravis, the meaning of its existence drastically changes depending on the scene I place it in. A soldier in training who's sneaking in a few sips before practice has an entirely different motive to someone who may have lost a loved one and is trying to escape the guilt of it. So, when you're writing your own story, think of concepts, features, or items that are just as dynamic as the cast of characters you build them around. But anywho, the rest of the story explores how this drug impacts Pierre and his thought process while he climbs the ranks as an infamous orchestra conductor. However, being a conductor of an orchestra means something a little different in my silly little world, as now it's your responsibility to control and play every instrument at the same time, which beyond being a painstakingly difficult thing to learn, is also just extremely painful. Bones will bend in ways that they shouldn't. Muscles will tear in ways you didn't know they could, all in the hopes of being able to play to an audience who thinks of you as nothing more as simple background noise. Yet, it was after getting to this stage of writing where I hit something commonly known as, "Oh my god, this shit sucks, please let me give up, I'm fucking begging you." So, fun fact, I actually have never written anything beyond 5 pages, which, trust me, I know it's pretty embarrassing, but I always just write and rewrite those first few pages over and over again. And it took everything from me to try and move on from doing that bad habit, to just be content that my writing is not perfect. In fact, it's really not that good at all. But I really needed to hold myself accountable to getting this thing out, because I know a lot of you guys struggle with the same thing. A lot of creatives I've met, both in and out of the industry, can't push themselves into pursuing projects or passions they have without a deadline or a paycheck. Others struggle with finding the motivation to push through and see something to the end, or just flat out think their ideas are bad and are too afraid to share them. Personally, I struggled with everything when writing this. Fuck, even writing the script to this video felt like an unbelievable slog. But personally, I just never stopped believing that at least one person would like my writing, would like my stories and ideas. So I pushed through. I think the main way I was able to do this was just honestly by treating it like it was an assignment. That there were people out there, whether 1 or 100, whether hypothetical or real, that wanted to read it. Yet, as I bunkered down and reinforced my loser reputation among acquaintances, something began to be abundantly clear. Listen, I think that if you want to write a book and you have never written anything in the ballpark of 10 or more pages, then you belong in a psych ward, because soon enough you'll go crazy when attempting to understand the scope of your project. What is scope? It's pretty much just how big your project is and how much stuff you plan to include in it. So before you know it, you're going to have boatloads of in-universe jargon, concepts, and all other sorts of stuff that need to be smoothly integrated into your writing. Otherwise, your story is either going to be impossible to understand or just outright boring because of the amount of time you're spending explaining stuff. Yet, that's not to say don't explain things to the audience. More so, make them understand it in a reasonable in-universe dialogue between two characters, or whatever way suits you. But then that raises a problem. You won't always be able to explain stuff to your audience in a reasonable way. That's why sometimes, especially when starting small, as you probably should, it's best to cut some stuff out. While writing, you will probably come up with dozens of ideas that you'll want to cram in there. However, the skill of a good writer isn't always about how much they can add into a story, but rather what they can compromise on to create a more coherent experience for people to engage with. When writing this silly little thing, I had so much I wanted to condense into about 15 pages or so, while still managing to keep the story engaging enough for somebody to want to actually read. Thus, I realized some things that I wanted to communicate just would not be feasible under the constraints I put myself under. Could I have theoretically made a 10 out of 10 literary masterpiece that included all of my wonderful wanky ideas? Maybe. Give me 5 years and we'll find out. But we don't have 5 years. We have tomorrow, next week, maybe even next month. And if I wanted to actually get something out for people to interact with, then it would be small, and it would probably not even be that good. Which is another thing I learned from this whole ordeal. Your writing is probably ass, and that's okay, because you can only improve by getting your work out there and in front of people, as scary as it is. Aside from that, though, I did mention that I wrote 2 stories, and I would like to introduce you to the second one. So, without further ado, I present to you, dear viewer, the Gambling Gladiators. Jesse Graham is a bastard gambler with too much luck. He's also extremely hot and pulls all the guys and gals. Okay, maybe I made up the latter, but people really do say the former. Every casino under the black and blue sky does not even bother to look me in the eye. Cause they know better. The house may always win, but I never liked leaving home without my share of the rent. Yet, the sucker running this joint is sitting on the other side of this table, bearing the biggest shit-eating grin I think I've ever been able to see on a dirty air breather.
Another round of blackjack, Jess. Can I call you that? Jess?
The man's mustache mutters at me. Sure, I can play one more. I respond, sweeping a few dozen chips off the table like a greedy coin pusher. But never in a million years call me Jess. That's a girl's name. The dealer begins whistling a tune as the cards gently glide in front of us. A queen of spades and a king of diamonds. 1 point away.
Tell me, Jesse, how do you do it?
The owner asserts, fidgeting with 2 chips. Huh?
How do you always win?
He asked, his eyes attempting to pierce the backside of my deck. Desperate old bastard. I don't know.
Don't be so humble now, boy.
He interrupted, his mustache lifting to reveal his teeth bloodied by biting their own gums. Just give it up, old man. You're not getting a peep out of me. I slouch in my chair. with the little light on the end of my tail mischievously swinging back and forth. Sparks of oak rupture on his end of the table as he digs his nails into the base.
2 days. 2 fucking days I've held you here in this room playing game after game. Even though you know you're going to die here. Even though you know the 2 guards behind you wait with their rifles loaded, begging you to let them stain the walls red with your ignorant ideals, you still sit here at
Me.
What?
The top card from the deck is silently slid to me. Sorry, that was to the dealer. Go on. I smiled. His face ran red, and so did the bubble he had formed around his fist. The table cracked in 2, with lotteries worth of chips swirling around us in the air like a man-made tornado.
You see, Jess? You see how dense I can turn the gravity around us? Around me? Around you?
I shuffled back as quickly as a 2-piece suit and a pair of loafers will let me. Quit calling me Jet! The floorboard beneath me crumbled under the slightest wave of his hand, and the windows exploded under the tiniest push. I could see myself in every shard's reflection. Gills on my neck flaring up for a fight, the instinctive lick of the blades in my mouth before every battle. The neon blue eyes suckers like him see through this place's endless fog from a mile away. He crouches down on the floor just to force his gaze into mine.
Listen, Jess, there isn't a single other casino in the old world that lets you sink your jaws into them. But we're offering you a chance to get back the fortune they robbed you from, to rise the ranks of this world's superficial social ladder.
A sudden pause befell the room.
To get back at the bitch that killed your mother.
He said with a smirk and a finger pointed to the sky. His eyes, they're deranged, downright crazy, and darting from one flying chip to another like each one of them is sparking another $1,000,000 idea. I hoist myself out of the hole he made me and stand before him.
What do you think, eh?
He asks, his hand reaching out, waiting for mine. A subtle smirk appeared on my face as I slightly tilted my head at the offer. You know what I think? I think you should stop calling me Jet. Okay, so in this wonderful wacky tale, it will be headlined by our 3 main protagonists. Jess, a gambling mastermind with the ability to manipulate cards and their velocities. Jessie, a hardened Gravis-abusing mercenary that can't stop pushing herself past her limits. And JJ, a cowardly medical student forced to sell faulty cures to make ends meet. They find themselves thrusted on the same team, fighting for a chance at having their debts wiped in the midst of an arena. But there are also bloodthirsty criminals down there, joining them to collect the same reward. Will they survive? Will a wrench be thrown into the game's plans? You can find out later! I haven't finished writing this one yet. I know, I'm sorry, but I really could not bring myself to condense this into a few pages and wanted to give it the best shot I could. So I will gather any and all feedback that you guys have for Pierre's story and apply it here. Yet with that out the way, I don't really have much else to mention. Just know that I've got some big things planned and that all of your support on these videos mean the complete world to me. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this. This probably is going to be the last thing I post in relation to Gravity Punk for a little bit while I work on the story behind the scenes. If you want to hear updates about it though, feel free to check out my Patreon. But other than that, I do have like one more pretty big project in the works for this idea, so stay tuned for that. Hello, this is Future Hank here. I don't know whatever that dumbass was talking about. Essentially, I wanted to tell you guys about some things that happened while making this video because I want to complain, and if you're watching to this point, then you're probably here to see me complain anyway. Essentially, I didn't have my microphone. My microphone didn't work for some reason. It sounded like I was underwater, so I was like, okay, I'll just record it on my phone. But the thing is, whenever I record on my phone, sometimes it peaks, and it peaks really badly. I'm pretty sure it peaked there, but whatever. And when it does, it means that the audio just turns to shit, you know? You just hear me breathing all over the microphone, and I just can't let that slide. So I had to record these voice memos in a very nonchalant, very like calm and calculated way to ensure that it doesn't peak. But honestly, next time, I don't give a fuck. Okay, you're gonna hear the thing peak whether you want it or not, because that does not sound like me in some segments of the video. Anyway, bye. Have a great day.